Hello and welcome. Today we're talking about one of the most polarizing figures in politics today, Benjamin Netanyahu. You've definitely heard the name. He's Israel's longest-serving prime minister, a political survivor like no other. And yet, he's facing intense dislike, not just around the world, but from a huge number of his own people. So how did this happen? In this explainer, we're going to break down why. So first, we'll look at how he built this powerful image of Mr. Security. Then we'll dive into how that image started to seriously crumble. After that, we'll tackle the massive failure of October 7th, the big question of whether this war is really about his own political survival, and we'll wrap up by looking at where he stands now, a pretty isolated leader. All right, so to really get why there's so much criticism today, you have to go back to the beginning. You have to understand the brand he built for himself. For decades, Netanyahu's entire political identity was wrapped up in one single idea: strength. And that whole story, it doesn't start in some political office. It starts on the battlefield. Okay, so this timeline here, it's basically the blueprint for his whole career. He actually spent his teen years in the US, but came back to Israel to join one of the most elite special forces units in the world, the Sayeret Matkal. And he wasn't just on the sidelines. He saw real action, even got wounded in a famous hostage rescue back in '72. But the real turning point, the moment that changed everything, was 1976. His older brother, Yonatan, who was a huge national hero, was killed leading that famous rescue mission in Entebbe. Netanyahu himself said that his brother's death completely changed his life and set him on his current path. That's what really propelled him into the public eye. And well, by 1996, he became Israel's youngest ever prime minister. And this right here, this was his core promise: I will keep Israel safe. It's so simple, but incredibly powerful. This became his entire brand, Mr. Security. He basically sold himself as the only person strong enough to protect Israel. And you know what? It worked. That message was super effective. It resonated with a lot of Israelis, and it's what gave him such a long and dominant career in politics. But that Mr. Security brand, that foundation of trust, it wasn't as solid as it looked. In fact, it was already starting to crack. And this was happening long before the current war. For years, this deep anger and distrust had been building up. And it really boiled down to two big things: his personal conduct and his political goals. First up, you've got his legal battles. Since 2019, he's been on trial for some pretty serious stuff: bribery, fraud, breach of trust, all spread out across 3 different cases. You've got Case 1000, where he's accused of taking fancy gifts like champagne and cigars. Then there's Case 2000, which is about a supposed deal for better media coverage. And the big one, Case 4000, alleges he gave a telecom giant regulatory favors worth a ton of money. Now, for his part, Netanyahu has denied everything. He calls it all a politically motivated witch hunt. But, a trial that just keeps going on. It definitely creates this constant cloud of suspicion. And then there's this second major issue, which honestly might have been even more divisive. I'm talking about his plan to overhaul the judicial system back in 2023. His government side of the story was that it was a much-needed reform to control a judiciary that had too much power. But his critics, they saw something completely different. They saw a blatant power grab. The fear was that he was trying to weaken the Supreme Court, which is one of the only real checks on government power in Israel, maybe to even help himself with his own corruption trial. And this just blew up. It led to the biggest protests in the country's history. We're talking about the whole nation basically coming to a standstill. And it just laid bare these incredibly deep divisions in society.
And then October 7th happened. This wasn't just another crisis for Netanyahu. This was the moment, the catastrophic moment, where his entire political identity, that one promise he built his whole career on, was just shattered. I mean, the attack was an absolutely devastating blow to his credibility. It was the single worst intelligence and security failure in Israel's entire history. Think about it. The one thing he promised for decades that he would stop from happening happened on his watch. For so many Israelis, the man whose entire brand was, "I will keep you safe," had failed at the most basic level. And the fallout was instant. You can see it right here in the numbers. Polls from early 2024 showed that public trust in Netanyahu just plummeted, down to 40%. But look at the trust in military leaders, like the IDF chief of staff, way up at over 68% among Jewish Israelis. That tells you everything, right? The public knew exactly where to place the blame, on the political leadership. They still trusted the military, but not the man in charge.
So this all leads us to what is maybe the most painful and divisive chapter of all, the war in Gaza. And this is where the criticism gets really, really personal. Because now the accusation is that Netanyahu is prioritizing his own political survival over everything else, over the country and over the hostages. You see, Netanyahu is caught in this impossible political bind. On one hand, he's promised total victory over Hamas. It's a goal that a lot of people think is pretty vague, maybe even impossible. But his far-right coalition partners, for them, anything short of that is a failure. They've literally threatened to bring down his government if he agrees to a permanent ceasefire. But on the other hand, that super hardline stance is causing major friction with international allies. And this is the crucial part, with the families of the hostages. And these families have become some of his loudest, most fierce critics. They're accusing him of stalling, of dragging his feet on a deal that could bring their family members home, all because a ceasefire might mean the end of his government. If you want to understand why people are so furious, just look at this quote. This is from his own finance minister, Bezalel, a key far-right partner. He said out loud that bringing the hostages home was not the most important thing. He said destroying Hamas was more important. Can you imagine hearing that if your loved one was a hostage? For the families and their supporters, this felt like a total betrayal. It just confirmed their worst fears that this government's priorities weren't about saving lives.
So when you add all of this up, where does it leave Netanyahu today? It leaves him looking like a leader who's backed into a corner, increasingly isolated from the rest of the world and deeply, deeply unpopular at home. I mean, the diplomatic fallout has been huge. His relationship with the Biden administration in the US, it's openly tense, which is a big deal. You've got allies like the UK and France coming out with sharp criticism. There was even a moment where diplomats from several countries just walked out during one of his speeches at the UN. It all points to a world that's just losing patience with this seemingly endless conflict and the humanitarian disaster in Gaza. And you can really see this loss of support in what is by far Israel's most important ally, the United States. Check out these numbers. While he still has really strong support from Republicans, look at Democrats and independents. His favorability has just collapsed. This is a huge shift. For decades, support for Israel in the US was a bipartisan thing. Both parties were on board. Now it's becoming a partisan political issue, and that really threatens a cornerstone of Israel's foreign policy. Which leaves us with the big question, right? What will his legacy be after this entire career built on the promise of security? Is he going to be remembered as a patriot who guided Israel through dangerous times? Or will the history books see him as a leader who, when it really came down to it, put his own political survival first, even if it meant fracturing his own country and damaging its place in the world? It's a tough question and, honestly, a really complicated legacy. So, what do you think? I'd love to hear your perspective down in the comments. And hey, if this breakdown was useful for you, do us a favor and subscribe for more explainers on the big issues shaping our world. Thanks for tuning in.